Hello, my name is Christoph Poropatits. Before I add a few more small details to Akeen's kind introduction, I want to jump right into the topic which you signed up for, and that is broadcasters and Generation C, so the young ones, 14 to 29-year-olds currently, and the learnings from Funk in Germany. I will present to you a few slides where I provide context as to what the two public broadcasting companies, ARD and ZDF in Germany, have done. But before I do that, I want to tell you why I am even so passionate about this topic. And big part of that reason is I spent a good part of last year and the year before researching the topic of broadcasting and how young people interact with public broadcasters in particular, because this was part of my master's thesis and research projects. I dived into the three dynamics of monetization and business models, so the financing part, then the user experience part, and very important in all video production and consumption, the content part. Since the topic of that is quite big on a global scale, I had to narrow it down to the German way of doing it, and in particular how ARD and ZDF, the two public broadcasting companies, publicly funded broadcasting companies, have approached the topic of reaching a young audience by creating the Funk network. As mentioned, thank you very much for your introduction, Akeen. I have worked with Google and YouTube in particular and in the online video industry ever since. I also teach at two universities of applied sciences in Austria. And what binds us all together, the glue behind all of this, is the Berlin School of Creative Leadership, where I could continue to work on my passion, on my area of interest, that is online video and the business behind it, while also doing my executive MBA at the Berlin School of Creative Leadership. Now, let's just frame what the online video world is currently. So it started out with YouTube back in 2006. Soon after that, 2008, Google acquired YouTube. And an interesting phenomenon popped up. Individuals, mostly out of their kids' bedrooms, started to upload content and started to reach bigger and bigger audiences. And what happened was YouTube then, as part of Google, that already had a sales team, opened up the financing options and advertising options for anybody who uploaded videos to YouTube and respected a few rules to make money. The so-called creator economy was born. Because video creators were starting to make money, media companies, traditional broadcasting companies, realized that there was a business opportunity. And for the first time, they understood how their traditional television models, business models, could convert into a digital way. The multi-channel networks, or MCNs, were created. Disney bought Maker Studios, Mediacraft Networks in Germany was started, ProSieben Media Group started to set up MCNs. The RTL Group, also on a global scale, started to create their own MCNs, and so forth. This was all possible because young people were attracted to online videos and online video platforms like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Netflix. But I wanted to explore why that was. I mean, I had a hinge that it was the easy-to-use business models, that the platform-specific content was appealing to them, but also that it was a user-friendly interface for those young audiences to use. Now, that left the public broadcasters behind because mostly private media companies had more R&D money to investigate an approach in going or becoming a multi-channel network. What did that mean for public broadcasting, though? Publicly funded money that also has a mandate to reach a young audience they had to find ways for themselves of creating new distribution patterns and addressing the 14 to 29-year-olds where they were at already. So ARD and ZDF created the Funk network to address this problem. The basic idea was set up a network that reached out with new content that was originally produced for an online audience that would be appealing to the Generation C and their consumption behaviors. Use business models and monetization that would deviate a bit from what YouTube and TikTok and other private company platforms have taught the users to use, but adapt them in a way that it would also be in line with usually legal regulation. That is, no advertising next to publicly funded content. Then the user experience would have to pick up, and we'll get into what other things Funk did apart from just distributing their content on online video platforms, third-party online video platforms, in just a second. The content would be very important, and then Funk was created back in 2016. Now, what is Funk, though? It's a network, and you can see it here, and I apologize for this slide being in German. This is a primary source that I also used in my research paper. You have Funk on the top here, and they hand out production money to production companies to produce content exclusively for Funk. Rights are being transferred by the production companies to ARD and ZDF for their distribution, their own platforms. That is the ZDF Mediathek and ARD Mediathek. So basically the hub where all of their broadcasting content is being distributed, but also then separately on a website called funk.net and in a separate Funk app. Additionally, though, and this is where it differentiated quite a bit from traditional broadcasting, the content was also being produced to be distributed on third-party platforms. Initially on YouTube and Facebook, now also on TikTok, Instagram, and on other third-party platforms. The channels being produced by production companies or individuals even who understand the young audience and understand how to make content for these third-party platforms is not only being produced by them, but is also being managed by them. So as soon as the content is being uploaded to YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, but also the ZDF and ARD Mediathek media repositories and the websites, the channel creators, production companies continue to manage their accounts, their content on these platforms. And that's a huge difference to what public or broadcasters in general have historically done. Now, what does that look like? On funk.net, you can see all of the content that is being published by Funk and also who the channel creators are. So funk.net is the holding structure, and underneath that are the formats Cinema Strikes Back, Die Frage, High Performer Henning, Psychology Geek, and so forth. And then in accordance and in agreement with Funk, these production companies stick to a regular uploading schedule and to anything else, channel optimization trends and so forth, that make the content perform well on YouTube, TikTok, and all the other third-party platforms. Funk has about 60 to 70 channels at a time, and the content is, as you can see here, quite colorful and flashy, and the format titles, the programming titles are completely new and somewhat youthful in the language compared to the broadcasting, what broadcasting or traditional broadcasting has historically produced. Some key stats on Funk now, as of 2023, actually, fall of 2023. 76% of the key age cohort, 14 to 29-year-olds, know at least one Funk format by name, and 76% have used at least one format in the previous year. That number has gone up significantly since the inception of funk in 2016. At any given time, 60 to 70 formats are being commissioned by funk, and rights are being bought, mostly in video. At that point, not only video anymore, but also audio for podcasts, in many and diverse categories, such as orientation, politics, finance, education, etc., etc. Yet all of these categories of programming have to appeal to a young audience. Therefore, the way those programmings are made is quite different to what you would usually see on your television set. Funk has now become one of the largest AI and data companies or subsidiaries within the big broadcasting network of ARD ZDF, simply because they are now able to gather what the huge cohort of the 14 to 29-year-olds like to watch, how old they are, and so forth. They understand much better what program might even be suitable for a television audience. So there has been a cross-media convergence between the internet and the Funk network, and a couple of the talents and formats being picked up and being put on television and distributed exclusively and only not through Funk anymore, but through the ARD and ZDF Mediatheken, so content repositories. And Funk has developed into a huge talent pool for journalism education, for journalists who are not only becoming private company and capitalist incentivized journalists, but who understand a value in public value broadcasting and the journalistic standards that need to be adhered to in that case. How did I go about my master thesis? Well, I did research on literature that was already out there. There are a few reports in a few industry journals. There's a lot of academic writing on the youth in general, and then on broadcasting and on social networks and consumption behaviors, but not really all of this combined with specific examples such as Funk. So I also did interviews with 10 CEOs of the production companies that produce content for Funk. And 10% of roughly 50% in total that produce content for Funk is quite a big sample. What I found, those are, by the way, two more examples of what a YouTube channel in the Funk network might look like. One is called Mr. Wissen to Go about politics, and the other one is Steuerung F, String F, which is a report format on all sorts of topics that are interesting to a young audience. What are the results of my survey? Well, one thing is the popularity of platforms such as YouTube, Instagram, and so forth among the Generation C can actually be attributed to the ease of use and the clear business models and the appealing content on those platforms. So it is very, very unlikely that a young audience is going to switch back to some other user, other app that a television company or broadcasting company might want them to use. So that is a first big takeaway. Well-funded public broadcasting services or for well-funded public broadcasters, so it is crucial to provide inclusive and democracy-promoting content to people of all ages. In Germany, even, there is a law that mandates the two public broadcasting companies that they need to reach also a young audience. And they need to declare to the public in public reports that they have been successful in doing so. So when they started Funk, they basically didn't really have another choice than to start a network like Funk that would then also use third-party platforms. The other thing that became clear as a big result from my research was the media libraries, the Mediatheken, are basically really just video or content repositories at this point. But they need to evolve. They need to become more user-focused with more enhanced features, recommend personalized content, connect users, offer the possibility to comment, interact, and so forth. If they don't do that, Funk is prone to be staying on third-party platforms forever. Yet that is not the goal. This is just an intermediary bridge for Funk. They want to have the young audience in their services, in their technical environment as well, of course. In order to achieve that, they need to address a couple of things. Some of them are audience issues, some of them are technical issues, and some of them are just plain contractual issues, like the way pitch fees and first look options are handled. Simply because being a public broadcasting company, they just took old contracts and the structure of old contracts in some of the cases and tried to adopt them to digital, but that didn't really necessarily work out because the way that the interaction on third-party platforms works is quite different to what you would do to content that you would then distribute on your own platforms. And another big learning was, if other countries outside of Germany that also have a strong public broadcasting sector want to reach a young audience, they will have to work with third-party platforms, American and Chinese platforms right now at least, to make that jump successful. A few more of the results that I want to highlight. Success with online video comes from understanding data and using that data that is being delivered by third-party platforms in a very smart way. Enabling a network, Funk in this case, to connect the individual partakers in the Funk network. So the production companies with Funk and the production companies and producers among each other. And success in online video also comes from cross-promotion. This is a centuries-old phenomenon, and it works online even faster and better than it did in other media outlets. The business models and financing need to be adapted. The content needs to be adapted, and the user experience, in particular, how the content is being adapted to each individual platform, is very important to make an idea such as Funk successful. My recommendations, therefore, for anybody who's in the media sector is, as media is increasingly convergent, tech companies will have an interest in commissioning media content even more because it keeps users on their platform. But media companies also need to start developing into their own technological infrastructure. And there will be a phase of the next couple of years where these two will have to work hand in hand. If media companies, or in particular public broadcasting companies, do not manage to appeal to the tastes and preferences of a young audience, they will leave the field to tech companies for a good time being. Funk is a really good example. They have done a whole lot of things absolutely right. They have developed an in-house separate unit. Funk is a separate unit within the big public broadcasting companies that works dynamically, that works with OKRs, that works with a very strong user focus, and that understands the content needs and consumption behaviors by the young audience in particular very well. Of course, there's also a couple of things that other broadcasters can learn from in terms of mistakes. One is the contractual issues and legal issues, but it goes to say, if any other broadcasting companies outside of Germany wish to start something similar to Funk, it all needs to start with the legal framework, because nonetheless, it is publicly provided and funded money that is being used.